Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. My phone thumped twice against the table. Anonymous tip urgent now. I am Mark 34 and the message grabbed my throat. Your wife is with the guy you shouldn't worry about tonight. I stood so fast the chair barked and my knee clipped hard. If this was real, I was already late. I called her on speaker and stared at the wall. 3 rings, then 4, then a gentle decline that froze my jaw. A heart popped in our thread, small and chirpy and wrong. Where are you? I typed, thumbs stiff and clumsy. No dots appeared, which felt like a dare. A second text arrived with a dropped pin, back booth, corner bar. Come alone, said the next line, clean as a threat. I grabbed keys, then the door, then my chest settled unevenly. The screen brightness stabbed and the map pulsed like a nerve. Someone wanted me moving, and I moved. Traffic stacked in ugly blocks and horns drilled the cab. I counted breaths like I was timing charges under my feet. Every light held red too long, then turned with a shrug. Not to worry echoed like a bad joke in my skull. What kind of man needs that line repeated? I parked crooked and didn't fix it. Time felt brittle. The bar spilled noise through the doorway like a pushed crowd. I kept my head low and my eyes working the edges. The back booths hid behind high wood, perfect for secrets. A laugh cut across the music and stuck. Her laugh, controlled, flatter than home, trimmed to nothing. I eased closer and caught a wrist brushing a sleeve. His watch flashed once, then he leaned like he owned silence. They were angled inward, noses almost touching, heat without contact. My mouth went dry and my feet glued. He saw me first and stiffened, then smiled with his teeth. She noticed the smile, then traced it to me without blinking. Her chin lifted a notch, a warning dressed as calm. Not here, her eyes said, and my hands trembled anyway. I waited for her to flinch, but she advanced. She pushed past him and placed her body between us. Outside, she whispered, chin still high, palm open but firm. He pretended to study his glass, then angled for the door. I felt my jaw clench and the old temper rose. She nudged my elbow, guiding me like a fuse. The alley tasted like metal and the night pressed heavy. She faced me square, phone tucked against her ribs like proof. Who told you? She asked, voice low and tight. Unknown number, I said, fighting the shake in words. Then someone wants this scene captured. I didn't like that thought because it tracked. If I was the target, there would be a follow-up. Her eyes kept flicking past my shoulder, counting exits carefully. The air changed with soft footsteps, then faded footsteps again. We weren't alone, at least not fully. Are you with him? I asked, tasting rust on tongue. She exhaled like a swimmer breaking surface, then steadied. It's complicated, she said, which landed like a blade. Complicated is the word people use when truth burns. I lifted my phone because evidence beats promises. The unknown number chimed again, short, clipped in command. Check your trunk, said the message, evidence is waiting. I felt a cold slide between shoulder blades, pure reflex. She read my face and tightened her grip on phone. Don't go alone, she said, already moving. We crossed the lot without talking, ears tuned to tails. A car door clicked far off, then another, then nothing. I popped the trunk and held my breath like a coward. A single envelope sat perfectly centered, precise and smug. Whoever planted it knew my habits. Gloves would have been smart, too late for smart tonight. I pinched a corner and lifted, heart kicking like a mule. Photos slid into view and punched the air from me. 2 images, hallway grain, angles that knew their business. Timestamps hugged the bottom like signatures. Her face appeared in profile, sharp, familiar, undeniable at first. His watch appeared again, same band, same smug tilt. Her jacket looked right and her posture looked wrong. Look close, she murmured, leaning in with steady breath. Details betray liars, even tidy liars. I zoomed on a hand and felt a stutter. Wrong nail shape, wrong chip, wrong small scar map. The hallway exit light matched a place I knew. Not a hotel, something colder, my stomach flipped hard. If this is our office, we have trouble. The message pinged again with ruthless timing and pace. Bring the envelope to the pier alone, half an hour. My skin crawled because the trap wore good shoes. He wanted me isolated and running on fumes. She stared at the text, then at me. We play along, she said, voice steady, eyes blazing. Only if we record everything, I answered, pulse surging. We moved fast because fast beats tidy when eyes watch. He thought I would rage blind and stumble like a rookie. I could rage later, tonight I would aim. I hit record and tucked the phone under my jacket. She mirrored me with a quick swipe and a nod. We moved to SEPA. Rate cars without another word. Distance makes room for mistakes, and tonight needed none. I followed her taillights 2 lengths back, steady and dull. A motorcycle shadowed us for 3 blocks, then peeled off. I noted the plate in a whisper for the mic. If they listened, they would hear me noticing them. The pier entrance rose ahead like a checkpoint with teeth. I parked near the exit ramp and left the engine ready. She rolled past and circled to a darker lane. We kept line of sight because losing her would break me. I scanned reflections and clocked 2 figures leaning too casual. They watched the water like people without anywhere else. One glanced toward my hood and touched his ear. I adjusted the phone so the mic faced the night. Bootsteps clicked behind me, heavy and deliberate and close. Envelope, a voice said, all sand and impatience. I held it midway and kept my elbow tight. Where is he? I asked, eyes never leaving the waterline. A horn flared once and cut off hard. She flashed her headlights twice and killed them. Signal confirmed. Our plan had a pulse. My throat dried, but my hands held steady. Wrong drop, I said and leaned into the wind. Your text named a time and a witness. He shifted weight like he wanted to test me. You brought a camera, genius, I added and smiled. He stalled, then reached for a pocket too slowly. I stepped in and tapped his wrist with the envelope. The phone chimed loud from under my jacket. He flinched like a fish on deck. From the shadows, another shape broke off and drifted closer. Not the boss, too small and too jittery. A runner sent to sniff, not to finish. I angled my body so the mic favored him. Where is the watch? I asked, crisp and direct. His jaw tightened, then he looked past my shoulder. She stood on the ramp with her own camera up. The lens blinked and he swallowed noise. Move the money, he muttered, trying to look tough. Then everything resets, he added, eyes never resting. Reset to what? I asked, keeping my feet planted. He flicked a glance toward the far slip and froze. The boss stepped out from behind a piling like he owned tides. He checked the time and smiled with no warmth. Trade, he called, voice light like this was routine. I lifted the envelope and waited for my moment. A distant siren scraped across the harbor and stretched out. His smile thinned and his fingers twitched once. She angled left and brought her phone higher. I felt the click inside me, the one that commits. Proof first, I said and tilted the envelope edge. You staged a hallway, I added almost gently. He looked bored and waved his helper forward. The helper hesitated, then reached, then stalled again. I snapped a photo of his face and the boss behind. He jerked back like the flash burned more than ego. Insurance, I said and let the word sit. The runner whispered something that sounded like my plate. A third presence shifted near the stacked ropes and waited. I counted 3 heartbeats and again heard the siren stretch. Police or ambulance, either way the clock moved. He finally noticed he was losing time. Fine, he said and tossed a key fob underhand. It skittered to my shoes and spun once. Locker 12, he called, shoulders tightening at last. Take it and stop pretending you have leverage. I towed the fob toward the edge and let it wobble. He flinched like I had aimed for the water. Your panic tells me it matters, I said, almost calm. The runner shifted closer with empty hands raised. She crept down the ramp, steps quiet, frame steady. We boxed him between us without touching him. The third presence finally spoke from the dark. Everyone relax, came the voice, flat and practiced. Security jacket visible only when he turned and faced us. He lifted a radio and watched the boss with mild interest. Got a complaint about threats and trespass, he said. Boss adjusted his collar like a man choosing a mask. This is a private handoff, he tried, eyes flashing quick. Security's gaze drifted to my camera and stayed there. You recording? He asked, tone neutral and slow. Yes, I said, pulse cooling into purpose. Then we preserve positions until officers arrive, he announced. The boss laughed once and waved the runner away. Runner moved to slip out through the gap. I cut him off with one step and a stare. Locker 12, I said, pointing toward the station. Security nodded, then pointed to a boundary line. Stay within that, he warned, voice still flat. He moved with us like a human fence. At the lockers, I hovered and let the fob dangle. Open it, I said to the boss without looking. He stopped smiling and started calculating. She filmed his hands and breath through her nose. He finally slid the fob across the metal and paused. A tiny red light blinked and my stomach turned. Explosive risk or alarm, either way my skin prickled. I drew back one step and raised my voice. Do not touch again, I called to security. Get your supervisor, I added, never blinking once. Security stiffened and reached for his radio. The boss watched the blinking like it owed him. She stepped close enough to capture the indicator. Timer, she whispered, and that word changed everything. We backed off in unison and widened the angle. The runner bolted and tripped over a cleat. I surged after him and he stumbled hard. We collided and the envelope scraped my palm. He twisted, but I pinned his wrist to the boards. Who planted the photos? I asked, voice deep and even. Agency, he gasped, turning his face from the camera. He named a firm I recognized from ugly rumors. The boss looked away like the name bored him. Security's radio crackled with incoming units. I dragged the runner back to the line and released. He panted and stared at my shoes without blinking. Stay, I said, and he did. I was done chasing crumbs without witnesses. The boss held my gaze and tried a calm grin. You want your life back, he offered with sugar. Walk away now and forget tonight. My laugh surprised even me, sharp and honest. Tonight is the point, I told him, eyes locked. I want the person who texted me. His blink gave up more than his mouth. My phone buzzed in my pocket like a reminder. I pulled it out and angled the screen away. A new message glowed with a short directive. Ask for the drive under the passenger mat. I looked at her and flexed my fingers once. The car, I called and pointed to the sedan. He hesitated and then tried outrage on for size. Search without a warrant, he tried, voice turning brittle. Security lifted the radio again and requested patrol. He saw the tide turning and chose speed over pride. He lunged for the sedan door with reckless energy. I met him there and blocked the handle with my wrist. She caught his motion clean and crisp. He swung wide and clipped my shoulder. I absorbed it and pushed him into the frame. Metal rang and he sucked in air. The runner took one step, then froze. I reached under the mat and found a plastic case. My heart slammed, but my hands were precise. She filmed the retrieval and kept her breathing measured. I held the case up with deliberate clarity. Final offer, I said, voice steady and low. Names first, then the case moves. He stared at it like it contained oxygen. Sirens rolled closer and washed over his face. He broke. He mouthed a single name and a company, tight and quick. Not my wife, not the runner, someone higher. The chapters of that name would come later, but not tonight. I pocketed the case and stepped back to keep angles clean. Two cruisers swung in hard and boxed the lane. He measured the gap like a trapped chess player. She shifted closer to my shoulder without touching. We were aligned now, whether I liked it or not. Officers fanned out and took quick inventory with trained eyes. Security pointed to the locker and then to the sedan. I raised my hands to chest height and kept breathing. The supervisor lifted his chin at me for a summary. Recording, I said, and my thumb hit play for everyone. His posture faltered when his own voice spilled from the speaker. The clip caught the key lines in the bluff. The supervisor's jaw worked once as the timeline snapped. Detain, he ordered, and wrists met steel in one move. The courier twitched, then stared down at his shoes. I handed over the fob and kept the case. Back up, the bomb tech warned with a flat tone. We cleared 20 feet while he scanned the locker seams. A small device blinked in angry rhythm under the door. He set a shield, then worked quick with calm hands. A soft thud, then silence that tasted like relief. The door opened to empty space and a single note. Bring the drive to me or the office burns. The supervisor looked at me and at the case. My stomach climbed because the fire threat felt real. She slid her phone toward him with a quiet tap. Stream our feed to dispatch, she told the uniform. Flag the building, I added, feeling the clock sprint. The supervisor radioed a unit for a sweep team. He nodded at us to hold position, then paused. My screen lit with one new line from the ghost. Turn around and count to 5 slowly. I pivoted and saw no one, just dark water. 5 beats passed and a single drone rose up. It hovered dumbly, then angled toward the sedan. Down, I barked, pulling her behind the engine block. The drone clipped the windshield and fell in pieces. Inside the debris, a sticker flashed, a corporate emblem. Not his company, another one higher on the food chain. My chest tightened because this was bigger than office gossip. The courier dared a grin until the supervisor noticed. Who pays you? I asked, stepping close enough to smell fear. He glanced at the emblem and lost the grin. He named a private intelligence outfit through clenched teeth. Her eyes cooled because the rumor just turned solid. The supervisor waved us to the perimeter line again. You two stay visible and keep filming, he instructed. Give me the case, he added, palm open and steady. I weighed the risk and shook my head once. I'll mirror it here, I answered, already moving. She unlocked her trunk and laid out a small hub. No commentary, just practice gestures that calmed my pulse. I slotted the case and waited for a green flicker. A directory popped up with 3 folders and a log. The first title punched me in the throat. Marital Leverage, read the label, cold and cruel. I opened and found transcripts and stage schedules. A full playbook to erode trust by inches. Photos, calls, automated hearts at key moments. They planned our fight before we lived it. She stared at the list and flexed her jaw hard. Neither of us spoke for 3 long breaths. Then I moved to the second folder with shaking hands. Accounting Roots, read the header, tidy and specific. Transfers, shells, fake audit confirmations, all crisp. The third folder just said witnesses with a number. Inside sat short clips like hunting trophies. Faces blurred, voices altered, timestamps aligned to tonight. One clip featured the hallway staging from a new angle. Different jackets, same trap, hired doubles on retainer. The log file last, one line kept repeating with timecodes. Send spouse to site, record reaction, escalate if needed. My ribs felt like a locked vice while I scrolled. They counted on jealousy to blind me into compliance. They nearly nailed it, and that stung. The supervisor hovered, torn between chain of custody and urgency. Copy this and hand me the stick, he pressed. I duplicated the folders to a fresh thumb with shaking focus. Half stays with us, I said, voice even and slow. He took the copy and nodded once without argument. Her screen pulsed with a call from an internal number. She left. Dia to speaker with a hard stare. A calm voice invited her to a late review downtown. Bring no guests, bring no devices, come ready to cooperate. The cadence was scripted, almost polite and filthy. Answer yes, I mouthed, and she did. The voice offered a street and a time with precision. 30 minutes to show or lose everything you love. The call ended before the supervisor could trace. That smooth confidence told me we were close. Set a perimeter on that address, the supervisor ordered. He reached for us, then hesitated for half a heartbeat. We can place you in a car and ride along. I checked the clock and looked at her for agreement. We both shook our heads in the same rough rhythm. We need to arrive as bait, not cargo, I said. And we need clean wheels they cannot anticipate. She pointed at the runner's compact with a quick lift. Keys dangled from the ignition like an invitation. The supervisor frowned, then waved 2 officers over. They swept the compact for trackers in 90 seconds. 2 pings chirped and landed in a bag. Clear enough, the tech concluded with a shrug. I slid behind the wheel and breathed once to center. She perched beside me with the drive tucked close. The supervisor leaned to the window with a warning. No hero moves, keep us on comms every block. I tapped the dash cam app and set it to broadcast. Her phone mirrored to a secure channel with a code. We had eyes now, which would matter soon. We rolled out slow to draw attention and test tails. A black SUV eased from a side street and lingered. I took 2 short turns and a longer loop. The SUV stuck like tugged gum and kept distance. Confirm tail, I said, and the channel crackled. Dispatch tagged the plate and fed back a rental. The company linked to a shell near their firm. Do not engage, came the supervisor's clipped command. I cut left toward the address and killed the music. Her hand found my knee and squeezed once. Whatever happens, trust the recording, she whispered. I nodded because words felt fragile inside my mouth. The building ahead rose blank and glassy and smug. A single badge reader blinked to the side like a lure. I pulled to the curb and let the engine tick. Walk like we belong, she said, straightening her shoulders. We approached the reader and waited for the intercom. A pleasant chime asked for names like this was a spa. Consultants, I replied, using the tone people accept. The lock clicked open with insulting ease. The lobby was quiet, professional, and carefully empty. No wasted movement, no obvious cameras, no friendly faces. A woman appeared from a corridor with controlled steps. Follow, she instructed, then turned without checking us. We did because we wanted the person holding strings. She guided us into a conference room with glass walls. 2 men waited at the table with tidy folders. One smiled without showing teeth and gestured to chairs. Delivery, he began, eyeballs never leaving the case. I set it down but kept a palm on it. Before we trade, watch this, I told the room. I sent the folder named Accounting Roots to the screen. Figures and sign-offs filled the glass in neat columns. The smiling man stopped smiling and adjusted a cuff. The second one checked the door and stayed very still. Explain the drone, I asked, keeping my voice even. Explain the locker and the timer and the courier. They glanced at each other with the tiniest crack of control. The woman by the corridor shifted her weight and blinked. She looked like a pro, but that blink mattered. Her phone buzzed on the console and lit with one icon. The same shell emblem from the drone flashed there. She tapped once, then again, then killed the screen. A tremor ran through her knuckles, small and telling. I leaned slightly so the camera could see it. Here is the offer, the smiling one resumed, thinner now. You give us the device and the raw captures. In exchange, your domestic situation returns to normal. He folded his hands like a teacher ready to mark papers. My laugh came out quiet and sharp and clear. My situation will be normal when you face charges. The device stays until a judge says otherwise. The second man rose and locked the door with a click. The woman reached under the table for something. I felt the air split in the space between us. Her phone vibrated again and a live feed opened. The screen showed our home from a porch angle. A red dot swept across the frame, then froze. My chest ignited, then steadied into ice. They touched our space to push me into begging. Wrong move, she murmured, lifting her own camera higher. Your feed just joined a live chain with police. She sent the link with a thumb flick and a glare. Dispatch pinged back that units were outside our house. The woman's mouth tightened as the leverage evaporated. The second man reached for the case with a fast grab. I pulled it back and slammed my palm on the table. Sit, I told him, looking straight into his bravado. The door handle rattled from outside with a rapid knock. Supervisors moved faster than they planned. The smiling man tried a new tactic with softer tone. You are hurting your partner by resisting, he warned. Walk away and the rumors vanish by morning. His words hit and bounced because we were past fear. I pressed play on the witnesses folder for the finale. The hallway clip filled the wall with crisp angles. A voice off camera directed the doubles to copy gestures. Again, the voice ordered and the jacket swapped shoulders. The woman in the corridor flinched at the audio. The voice was hers, pitched lower, undeniable. The door opened on uniforms and the supervisor's silhouette. The smiling man tried to swallow his face back into neutral. He failed and settled for indignant as wrists met steel. The second man sagged into his chair and stared holes. The woman looked at the screen and then at me. She debated a dive for the exit and abandoned it. She set both hands on the table like it was an altar. Check the upstairs vault, she muttered, voice thin and ragged. Names are inside, contracts 2, entire roster. Her eyes found the case like it was a life raft. The supervisor signaled a team toward the elevator in a rush. He turned to us with a look I could finally read. Respect mixed with worry, and worry still won. Do not move from this room, he instructed quietly. I nodded and finally let my shoulders sag 1 inch. My phone vibrated with one more whisper from nowhere. Good, now finish what you started at the bar. A heart appeared, then vanished before I could reply. She caught it on camera and raised an eyebrow. We both knew exactly who would text like that now. The ceiling speaker crackled, vault team found resistance on the landing. The supervisor snapped his baton open and jerked his chin. 2 uniforms flowed past the glass and vanished up the stairwell. I kept the case on the table and watched the woman. She stared at the hallway clip like it was a mirror with teeth. Her jaw worked once, then steadied into something colder. You want the roster, she muttered, eyes on the corridor. Then brace for a kill switch. She tapped the console twice and the lights dimmed. A magnetic thump locked the doors like a trap. The smiling man tried courage and reached for the panel. She slapped his wrist away without looking. You hired me to clean your mess, she breathed. Not to drown with you. He sat down fast, sweat rising in tiny beads. A muffled thud shook dust from the vent. Upstairs, a blast door had just decided to matter. The supervisor keyed his radio and barked for cutters. Dispatch answered with a delay that tightened every muscle. Someone jammed comms just enough to waste minutes. I opened the case and cued another clip to the wall. Not her voice this time, another caller running cues. Reset hearts at 2113, the voice ordered. Trigger argument with a missed call, the voice added. I knew that cadence from our thread and my neck burned. The woman cocked her head, then exhaled through her nose. Your ghost-like symmetry, she noted, fingers hovering. She toggled a menu I hadn't seen before. A small map bloomed with dots across the city. Pairs, all couples, pulsing like bait. How many operations tonight? I asked, keeping volume level. She counted lines the way gamblers count losses. Enough to feed publicity if one goes viral. The smiling man swallowed hard and looked smaller. He finally understood he was just payroll. Footsteps scraped outside, then a hard knock rattled. Open or we breach, a muffled voice warned. The supervisor yelled back with an ID string. Bolts retracted and the door cracked 2 inches. A steel bar lodged in the frame and held. Through the gap I saw a gloved hand wedge deeper. Not police gloves, too thin and too confident. The woman reached beneath the table and found leverage. She slid a slim pistol up and leveled it. Her eyes were dead calm, which scared me properly. Put that away, the supervisor warned, hand hovering midair. She never blinked. Everyone stays still or that door opens fully. The hand paused, then withdrew just enough. Whoever pushed it in was patient. She turned to me with a flat question. Do you want this to end clean or loud? Clean gets you the roster intact, she continued. Loud turns this floor into a headline. I remembered the porch feed and tasted metal. Clean, I answered, pulse trying to sprint. Then help me drag your friend away from that panel. We hauled the smiling man back as he whimpered. She keyed a short code and killed the lock. The door side opened like it disliked being useful. A pair in maintenance uniforms stepped through with empty hands. They scanned faces as if shopping for problems. The woman lifted her pistol 1 inch. Easy, she warned, kicking a chair toward them. Sit until the vault gives up. One of them glanced at the wall map and frowned. Who authorized multi-target tonight? He asked softly. She ignored him and flicked to a different feed. Upstairs, sparks were chewing the vault hinges. The cutters were finally earning their pay. She pivoted toward me with a strange focus. Your teepster wants you to see the driver, she said. I felt the floor tilt under that word. Driver, not boss, not courier, driver. The person who aimed the night like an arrow. Where? I asked, throat dry and stubborn. Her thumb selected a tile labeled Doc Cam 3. The feed showed the pier again, now empty and slick. A compact figure crossed the frame with a quick stride. A hood, a scarf, a familiar bounce in the gait. I knew the silhouette before my brain admitted it. The text with the heart landed in my chest again. She zoomed and the hood slipped for half a second. Hairline, jawline, the tell I refused to see earlier. Maya had orchestrated the opening beat and smiled about it. My face must have shown it because she watched me. Still want clean? The woman asked, voice neutral and grave. I swallowed and kept my voice working. Clean means you escort us to the vault, I said. Then you come with us to make it stick. The magnetic lock on the vault finally clanged. A cheer tried to form, then died halfway. A fire alarm chirped once and shut off abruptly. The maintenance pair stiffened like puppets. Maya beat the sweep team to the files, one whispered. We moved, no speeches, only motion and breath. The corridor smelled like hot wiring and impatience. At the stairwell landing, a guard lay zip-tied and groaning. The woman tossed me a small cutter with practiced aim. Free him if you trust him, she said, already climbing. We hit the vault level and found chaos controlled. A smaller door hung open and papers lay scattered. On the far side, a side hatch banged once. Maya had passed through seconds earlier, light on her feet. She wanted a chase and I gave her one. I sprinted and the supervisor swore behind me. He barked at 2 officers to flank the external stairs. I took the inner route and shouldered through a service hall. Stale air, tight turns, a wedge of darkness ahead. Then a rectangle of night and the sound of running. On the loading dock, she glanced back and smirked. Her hand held a slim drive between 2 fingers. Miss me, she called, voice too bright and easy. I kept closing, feet pounding, lungs burning quietly. We both knew this had to finish now. She cut left toward a fence and vaulted cleanly. I slammed through a gate latch and sliced my palm. Blood brightened my grip and sharpened my focus. I caught her ankle mid-landing and yanked. We hit the concrete together and rolled ugly. She kicked free and came up with a collapsible baton. The first swing whistled inches from my ear. I stepped inside and trapped her forearm tight. She jammed the baton into my ribs and twisted. Stars burst and I bit my lip to stop a yell. Why me? I rasped, breath hitching once. She smiled like a coach seeing a perfect drill. Because you react predictably, she answered, eyes glittering. You show up for love and for honor. She fainted high and drove the baton low. I blocked with my forearm and felt nerves scream. She pressed close and hissed at my shoulder. He would have owned her within a month. You needed a monster to unite against. She sounded proud, which made me nauseous. Boots thundered on concrete and the supervisor rounded in. Maya flicked the baton toward his knee and missed. She spun and bolted toward a stairwell cutout. I chased and tackled at the first step. We crashed into the railing and bent it. The drive skittered out and kissed the edge. She dove for it and I hooked her belt. A gun drew from behind and found her spine. Freeze, the supervisor ordered, breath steady and stern. Maya froze, chest heaving, eyes running options. Why the couples? I asked, forcing calm into words. She stared at the drive like a hungry dog. Fear sells faster than ads, she replied, tone flat. Break them and you steer markets overnight. She said it like weather, not confession. The woman from the conference room arrived and stopped. Her pistol lowered 1 inch as she took stock. She outranks your boss, I told the supervisor. She can write the affidavit clean. The woman nodded once, then faced Maya. You planted the hallway, you timed the hearts. You escalated peer, you push. Ed the drone. Maya shrugged and rolled her neck to the side. Clients wanted proof of concept, she answered. Now you have it, multiplied in triplicate. Kick the drive to me, I demanded, hand out. She stared at my shredded palm and actually winced. Her foot slid under the plastic like a golfer. She sent it skidding toward the supervisor instead. A small mercy or a taunt, I couldn't tell. Sirens closed in like a noose, finally doing its job. Uniforms poured through the gate with practiced rhythm. Maya's shoulders dipped like she considered one last sprint. The woman shook her head and raised her badge. Not tonight, she told Maya, voice low and final. Cuffs clicked and the baton clattered away. Maya looked at me, then at the woman beside me. You two were the only variable, she whispered. Most couples choose suspicion and lose everything. I felt the insult and the warning in one breath. The supervisor bagged the drive and logged the chain. He radioed that the vault had yielded contracts. Names, payments, patterns, all headed to evidence. He gave us a glance that carried both relief and caution. Interview rooms are waiting, he said, not unkind. I watched them lead Maya toward the vehicles. She walked proud, chin high, unbroken by handcuffs. As she passed, she mouthed a final line for me. Check the backup in your garage. Every muscle went cold because that was a new wound. I hit the opener and the garage stopped halfway. The motor jammed and groaned like it fought orders. Her hand froze on my wrist and we listened. A faint tick answered from inside like a metronome. Whatever waited there wanted our attention, not mercy. Patrol cars settled at the curb in cut engines. The supervisor lifted 2 fingers and pointed to flanks. Hold the street, he mouthed from the driveway. I nodded and stepped under the door's uneven lip. The air felt charged enough to raise skin. Do not cross the center line, she warned quietly. Her eyes traced floor seams with clinical focus. An open panel on the wall hummed like a hive. A cable ran to a small box under the shelf. No dust on top, so it was new. My phone vibrated twice with that old anonymous number. Move it and watch your life vanish. A second text followed with a countdown that began. 30 minutes to prove you are smarter than fear. I tasted metal and crouched to see better. The box sat on a spring plate with a sensor. A thin antenna chased up toward the rafters. Not big but loud in the way that matters. She knelt opposite me and met my eyes once. Pressure trigger and cellular backup, she breathed. Bag, I called, voice low and controlled. The supervisor slid a Faraday sleeve across the floor. I leaned in and felt the spring flex under my palm. Weight stays until the clamp goes on, she said. I nodded and set my hand flat on the lid. Her fingers worked the cuff around the body with care. The timer on my screen kept chewing seconds. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked in ugly bursts. A shadow crossed the side gate and paused too long. The supervisor pivoted toward the yard with a quick jerk. You hold, she whispered, eyes locking on me. She slid out and 2 uniforms ghosted after her. I stayed pressed to the plate and counted breaths. The spring talked to me in tiny shivers. My forearm started to shake and I didn't move. A shape hopped the fence and landed crooked. He reached under a planter and drew a toddler lunchbox. Not cute tonight, just efficient and wrong. She broke from the hedges and cut him off clean. The runner froze, then swung, then ate pavement. Hands, the supervisor barked, patience gone at last. Zip ties whispered and silence settled in layers. She kicked the lunchbox over and it rattled. A key fob and a narrow card slid out. The card carried the same drone emblem. Two caches, she called, voice clipped and sure. Primary inside and courier backup outside. The runner muttered about deliveries that never happened. I heard it clear enough to file later. My palm burned and the countdown bled seconds. Clamp, she said, back at my shoulder fast. She tightened the sleeve and signaled me to release. I lifted one finger at a time and waited. The spring relaxed a hair and held. We both exhaled like people cheating gravity. The antenna still bothered me, stubborn and smug. She wrapped the sleeve fully and twisted the latch. The timer on my screen twitched and stalled. Connection lost flashed for a heartbeat and returned. Redundant path, I muttered, watching the bars climb. Kill the router, she said, already moving fast. I hit the switch and the timer paused again. A small battery in the panel clicked stubbornly back on. Whoever built this favored failsafes over elegance. We needed power without signal and time without motion. Car inverter, the supervisor suggested from the door. Keep current, steel network by minutes. He popped the hood and laid the cables. Down. We clipped leads with steady hands and no chatter. The box settled into a quiet that felt temporary. I linked our hub to its data port with care. The directory appeared and my gut clenched hard. A folder labeled boards had a fresh timestamp. She started the copy while I monitored the timer. It crawled like a stubborn progress bar from the past. A new folder blinked open on its own. Distribution queued, read the header, scheduled for dawn. Targets listed by region, influence, and ad spend. They planned a flood across morning shows worldwide. We were hours away from a manufactured panic. Another alert pinged from the side camera. Back gate again, slower, more deliberate this time. The courier cracked the latch with a thin tool. I held the plate and watched her move like a blade. She met him inside the threshold and folded him neatly. He dropped a second card and a tiny relay. Signal booster, she said, flipping it with her boot. He called her a traitor and spat near her shoe. She looked past him like he was air. Chain of custody just improved, she answered, unimpressed. The copy hit 50% and stalled on a video. I opened the preview and froze mid-breath. A reel stitched together with our faces as anchors. Clips of me entering the bar and gripping the envelope. Clips of her between me and the boss outside. A caption overlay blinked with prurient captions. Husband melts down after catching cheating spouse. It was ready to blast if we faltered once. My throat tightened and then loosened by will. They weaponized narrative like code, I said flatly. Her hand touched my shoulder and steadied the tremor. Keep going, she whispered, not moving her gaze. The timer ticked to 10 minutes and held there. Dispatch confirmed a tech van inbound on the channel. They will cut the spring clean, the supervisor promised. The runner started humming to himself against the fence. The tune stayed just off key and crawled under my skin. Ask him who gave the porch feed, I called. She walked over and crouched to his level. He grinned and pointed to his pocket with a jerk. She pulled a cheap phone and handed it to me. A name glowed on the top thread with 2 dots. M, not Maya, just that letter and an ellipsis. New sender, different cadence, same appetite for chaos. I stared at the dots until they vanished. The copy hit 90 and then 99, painfully slow. I closed my eyes for one breath that lasted years. The bar completed and the sleeve light blinked. We had the data cloned and the source still alive. Now we lift, she said, eyes hard but bright. The tech team slid under the door with a kit. They locked the spring with a brace and nodded once. Release, the lead murmured, hands steady as granite. Weight off, clamp on, signal trapped, current stable. The countdown froze and died on my screen. We bagged the booster and the lunchbox together. The supervisor photographed every handoff and step. He looked less worried and more precise now. We had off-ramped the bomb and fed the case. The runner stopped humming and stared at the driveway. I cracked the board's folder while they sealed evidence. Inside were contracts and memos with a single name. A holding company sat at the top of the pyramid. They owned the pie shop and 3 familiar brands. All the ads that stoked fights flowed from one desk. Send that to the stream, she urged, voice low and urgent. I pushed it and watched the file leave our screen. Dispatch confirmed the upload hit the shared vault. No one could bury that without burning a courthouse. I finally let my shoulders soften 1 degree. My phone buzzed once more with a new message. Good move on the inverter, keep your garage shut. No heart, no flourish, just a clean instruction. Whoever watched tonight played closer than I wanted. I typed back one word that tasted like defiance. Why? 3 dots appeared, then cleared, then returned again. Because dawn carries a second wave if you miss this. Check the attic above your car before you sleep. I looked up and felt the floor tilt under me. She followed my gaze and braced under the rafters. The supervisor lifted a hand and signaled a long pole. A plastic shell cracked free and dropped to the cement. It popped open to reveal a slim transmitter. Redundant pass number 3 finally cornered. I crushed the urge to celebrate and focused on next. We go public before they spin it, I said. She nodded and touched her phone to mine. We share the hall with 3 trusted contacts. If we disappeared, the files would keep running. The runner laughed once and coughed from the ground. Morning news will chew you up anyway, he rasped. I looked at her and felt something settle. They can try, I answered, calm in my bones. We still had 1 chapter left to close this. I climbed the ladder and pressed my palm to the joist. Heat leaked through the wood like a warning. Bags, I called. ND, she swung the beam aside. A second shell waited in the insulation with patience. I steadied my breath and gripped the edges hard. The supervisor passed me a sealed pouch by fingertip. I cushioned the device and felt the antenna shift. A thread-thin reed poked through the tape and quivered. Tripwire, she murmured, eyes narrowed, shoulders set. I rotated the housing a 1/4 inch and froze. A text flashed from the same unknown initial. Move slow or lose everything before sunrise. I typed one word and kept my hand still. Where? An address returned our first bar, the loop closing fast. We neutralized the shell with 2 clips and a brace. The timer died like a small animal finally tired. I handed the pouch to the tech and climbed down. She watched my face for cracks and found none. We both knew the night wanted one more hit. We end it where it started, I said. The supervisor didn't like the plan, but he nodded. Body cams on, channel open, your feed prioritized. He pointed 2 units to tail us loose. If they jam, lean into noise, he added. We drove the runners compact because it blended. I narrated every turn into the mic for the record. She monitored the uplink like a surgeon counting beats. The city felt like a maze designed for 1 exit. We aimed straight for it and refused to blink. The bar door pushed inward and caught on a wedge. Chairs sat on tables and the music was off. A lone figure faced the mirror behind the counter. No mask, no hood, no nerves in the hands. Welcome, the voice carried, cool and almost kind. I said, and I didn't make it a question. Thank you for following instructions, the person replied. The cadence matched the texts, clean and clipped. She moved to my flank and raised her camera high. Our stream pinged live and anchored to dispatch. Your company owns the shells and the ad buys, I started. Your firm built the couple's map and timed the triggers. You hired the pie shop to dirty their hands. He smiled at the mirror and left his back turned. Outsource everything except vision, he answered, almost cheerful. Tonight your vision touches jail, I said softly. He lifted a glass with a small toast to no one. Only if you prove intent beyond clever coincidence. He set the glass down without a ring. Do you have that intent, he asked. She tapped her phone and threw the vault feed up. Contracts filled the screen and signatures stacked. He studied the names like weather he had predicted. My counsel will call those exploratory drafts, he shrugged. Shaky chain, bad optics, weak case, he added. Your initials signed the drone rental, she cut in. Your badge opened the staging corridor tonight. He paused 1 heartbeat and dragged a fingertip across the bar. It was necessary to demonstrate reach, he replied. Then he turned, eyes bright with self-belief. I felt a surge, not rage, something steadier. This started with an anonymous tip, I said. You staged my reaction like a training film. He considered me like a consultant he might hire. Your reaction sold me the pilot, he admitted. A crackle bled through my earpiece, interference light but purposeful. He glanced up as if hearing it too. You brought friends, he observed, amused and unconcerned. Let them watch, he continued, rolling his sleeves with care. This is where we negotiate real outcomes. Outcome number 1, I counted with a raised finger. You walk out in cuffs and lose your board seat. Outcome number 2, I continued, never breaking eye contact. You hand me the master list and cooperate on record. Those are the only doors, I finished, voice even. He laughed once and pointed to the hallway camera. Door 3, he said and pressed a small remote. A screen behind the bar bloomed with our porch again. A different angle, a different red dot tracking lazy arcs. My stomach nodded, then steadied because we planned for this. She lifted her phone and flicked to the shared channel. Uniforms waved from our driveway on the split screen. They stepped into frame and blocked every line of sight. The dot bumped their vests and stayed useless. His leverage collapsed and he knew it. He tried charm, softer now, almost intimate. You don't get your marriage back by jailing me. You get it back by deleting evidence and moving on. His eyes searched my face for doubt and found metal. I leaned forward and let the mic catch every syllable. I get it back by telling the truth on tape. And by refusing any fix that erases accountability. He weighed the room and calculated the public clip. I recognized the moment his math turned negative. His shoulders fell half an inch and pride bled out. He reached for the remote again and I snapped a photo. The flash startled him, which gave me 3 steps. I was across the floor and onto his wrist. He jerked back and scraped my forearm with the corner. She pressed the panic tile and the door blew open. Officers fanned in quiet and efficient, no hero moves. He pivoted to protest and found 4 cameras instead. Counsel, he announced, reaching toward his pocket slowly. Hands high until your lawyer walks, the supervisor called. He went still and watched the stream like a cornered broadcaster. Master list, I demanded, not patient anymore. He tilted his chin toward the office without looking. In the safe under the cabinet, he muttered. Combination in my phone, top note, red star. The supervisor plucked the device and handed it to forensics. I entered the code with careful fingers and a calm prayer. The safe opened like it had been waiting for daylight. Thick stacked 2 drives, 1 notebook with numbers. She documented every page with clean, methodical shots. Names from our folders matched line by line. He watched. He processed like a stock ticker bleeding. You think this ends your headlines? He asked plainly. This ends one system, I answered just as plain. And it saves couples you never met, I added. I wanted him to hear the limit of his reach. The supervisor radioed the courthouse for a night judge. Warrants chained to the inventory with swift precision. An assistant DA joined the call with clipped clarity. We walked through the case while he listened, jaw tight. Every sentence pushed him further from any soft landing. He tried one last angle with a crooked smile. You still doubt her, he said, nodding at my partner. You came because you never really trusted. He hoped to widen a crack that didn't exist anymore. I let the charge hit and pass straight through. I distrust systems that feed on doubt, I told him. I trust the person who ran into the trap with me. She looked at me quick and bright, then back to work. That look packed more than any speech could carry. He turned away because the angle died in his hands. Cuffs closed on his wrists with a clean click. He didn't fight, just filed the moment for later spin. The room exhaled as if it had been bracing for collapse. I held the drives as if they weighed almost nothing. They felt lighter because the secret wasn't ours anymore. We walked out while uniforms sealed the scene. Outside, dawn pushed at the edge of the street in strips. I didn't care about sunrise, only about what survived it. She slid her hand into mine and squeezed for real. We were not fixed, but we were honest. The supervisor caught up with a small grin. Press will swarm, he warned, pointing down the block. Stay ahead with your stream, he suggested, practical and blunt. We nodded and kept moving toward the curb. The rental SUV from earlier idled at the corner. I moved between it and her without thinking. The driver's window rolled down a notch and stopped. A new voice drifted out, low and almost bored. Board reorganizes at 9, the stranger announced. Your clip decided the vote 2 hours early. Which stranger? I asked, leaning closer without exposing my chest. Interim chair, the answer came with dry humor. We will sell the pie shop by lunch, the voice added. Expect subpoenas and ugly memoirs, the voice finished. The window crept up and the SUV slid away. Useful chaos, she muttered, watching the taillights shrink. Or a rival cleaning house, I countered without regret. Either way, the engine behind tonight lost its polish. We had enough to keep it losing for months. We had enough to stop the morning surge. Her phone pinged with a single-line notification from dispatch. The couple's map stopped pulsing. Officers reached the remaining targets and shut the scripts. No automated hearts, no hallway doubles, no midnight queues. The city quieted one notch and held there. Reporters gathered near the crosswalk with handheld mics up. The supervisor lifted a palm and created a bubble. Share your footage, then breathe, he advised quietly. Let the paper trail carry the weight, he finished. I agreed because hero speeches rot cases. We sent the last package to the shared vault. The upload meter climbed, jerked, then settled strong. A minute later, the DA's office pinged a receipt. Chain intact, exhibits logged, witnesses scheduled. A clean sentence in a night built to be dirty. Home, she said finally, voice gentle but firm. We drove in silence that felt earned, not empty. At the driveway, I killed the engine and waited. The porch camera blinked a neutral idle with no dot. The door opened to a space that was ours again. Inside, we placed our phones face down on the table. Simple gesture, new rule, same house, different terms. I will tell you everything, even when I'm afraid, she said. I will ask before assuming I know, I answered. We sealed it with a nod meant for both of us. My screen buzzed once more with that initial. M, no flourish, no threat, just 2 words. Nice work. I blocked the thread and felt something unclench inside. Then I looked at her and chose to stay awake.